Welcome to the Angular Plus Show, where app developers of all kinds share their insights and experiences. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Angular Plus Show. My name is Laura Newsom. I am here today with Chow. Chow, how's it going?
Good and tired, but I'm here. I'm here to learn more about Playwright because I use Playwright at work.
Yes, nice. Yeah, and Chow's been, for those of you not living in the Midwest of the United States, it has been a steam sauna the last few. I think steam sauna is the proper setting for what we're on.
Yeah, we got extreme heat warning the past week or so. Yeah.
So it's nice out. Jan is with us as well today. How's it going?
Pretty good. We finally have AC back. Our AC broke down last week in the Midwest. You move to the glorious country of AC, and then it's like it breaks down, and you'll just like, great. So now I have nothing that this country is worth living for. Thanks.
I will say, like, on the opposite side of that, like the new house I moved into, my bedroom is the coldest room in the house, and it is the most delightful thing that's ever happened to me as an adult. So just like laying there, I could feel the air conditioning hitting my face, and it's the best thing in the world. But anyway.
Yeah.
We're not really here to talk about air conditioning, but I will say it is the one thing I don't know if I could live without. Anyways, on that, we'll stop there, put a pin in that. Our guest today is Debbie O'Brien. Debbie, welcome back to the podcast. How are you today?
Hi, everyone. Well, I am feeling hot because we are in the middle of this heat wave that you seem to have got. You sent it all over to us. So we're on 39 degrees today. And luckily, I do have air conditioning in this room. So that's why I'm staying here, and working is better than being outside.
Oh, for real. Yeah. When I lived in Los Angeles, not a lot of the housing had air conditioning, which was really weird. So that's probably my closest to living in Europe.
I think every year it's getting warmer. Every year we keep adding another air conditioning unit to another room. So I think eventually we'll have air conditioning everywhere, but at the moment it's like 3 rooms.
Yep, exactly. So when you're not talking about air conditioning, would you please introduce yourself to our users? Good Lord, our listeners. It is morning, so I'm only halfway through this cup of tea.
So yeah, my name is Debbie. I'm actually living in Mallorca. That's why it's so hot. I'm Irish, and I work for Microsoft, mainly advocating for Playwright. So if you haven't heard of Playwright, then you're in the right place, because that's what you're going to hear about today. And I've worked a lot in open source over the years, so many people know me more in the Vue and Nuxt ecosystem, although I did originally learn AngularJS back in the day when AngularJS was the cool thing to do.
It's still the cool thing to do, just in case you were wondering.
I don't know. Angular has evolved. It's evolved in such an amazing way, though. It really has, it's very cool.
It has. I think a lot of people have been surprised coming back to Angular, just with some of the changes that have happened really since in the last 4 or 5 versions. So, but yeah, well, welcome to the podcast. So for our listeners who maybe are not aware, what is Playwright exactly?
Sure. So Playwright is a way for you to test your applications. So if you remember back in the day, and some people are still back in that day, when you built your app and then you had to go and test it, and say your app has a big form, and you fill in the name and fill in the email address and fill the telephone to check that the telephone actually only accepts numbers and doesn't accept letters, and you fill all this out, and then it keeps giving you bugs, and you start fixing them as you go along, right? This is such a slow procedure, and that's just a form. Like, imagine your whole website. So we call this like manual testing, but the developer is manual testing. We used to stop on a Friday and say, everyone, stop what you're doing, test the application, and then fix everything, right?
Yep.
That wasn't that long ago. And some people are still doing that, so stop doing that. If you're doing that, listen. Playwright will take that work away from you, because you can basically write a test that automates the browser to go and do those actions that you would be doing, such as filling in that form, clicking on those buttons, putting a product in a cart. And once that test is written once, you can just run that test on CI every time you make a change. And so then you know nothing is going to break. Or when you break something, you're not going to merge those changes because you're going to find that either locally or on CI, and you'll be able to then fix your code before you create a disaster, which disasters are still happening. So people are not testing their applications.
Yep. And there are sometimes barriers to that as well. You know, to acknowledge that like sometimes your boss says don't do it, and which to me is always a little like it's counterproductive, but sometimes it's hard. I think we're getting more and more business buy-in to say, no, let's go ahead and test it. 'Cause I think that the value add is not debatable at this point.
I think it's not just the value add, and I think still it's up to the developer to do a good job and provide tests along with their development. That's just my opinion. I've always fought for that angle, because if the developer doesn't, up above probably are not going to force the developer to do those extra steps. It's like accessibility. You add alt tags to your images. You do it automatically as a developer. So write the tests as you go along. But I think as well, it's not just that people are seeing the value of it, but testing has become easier. And that means it's using up a lot less of developers' time. Whereas before Playwright, for example, testing was harder to learn. It was harder to get started with. And people weren't even teaching it in like, boot camps and courses. It was like just an afterthought. Whereas now Playwright is so easy. You can get started in minutes, and you can like generate the code just by clicking using, say, CodeGen, which is a tool we have, and it just open the browser, start clicking and filling out the forms, and it writes the test for you. So now technically you don't even have to have any testing knowledge to be able to write a test. Now, obviously you should have testing knowledge to write good tests, but you can actually get started with zero knowledge, and that's value. So any company out there has no excuse.
Right. Yeah, and you look like you're going to say something.
Does Playwright just instrument the browser, or does it also offer capabilities for like mobile testing, native applications, those kind of things?
So we are browser-based only,
Okay.
but we can do emulation. So if you wanted to emulate to mobile device size, for example, responsiveness, things like that, we can do. But actually native, you would have to go to, say, Browser Stack for something like that.
Okay. Gotcha.
So there are other end-to-end testing. So Playwright essentially kind of fills in that like end-to-end integration testing step. And there are other options on the market. In your opinion, what sets Playwright apart from the other options?
Yeah, I would say that it is the best because I work there. No, I would. I firmly believe that it is actually just very nice and easy to use. And I think when it comes to developer experience, that's what people want. They want a good experience. They want things to work. We're constantly making improvements and fixes. Everything is open source, so it's free. There's no cost. And basically, like all the tools that we provide are to help you be more successful when it comes to testing. And yeah, I definitely think like just the ease of like getting started and getting things up and running and using the tools we have make it, in my opinion, better than all the rest. But also we're also the newest compared to all the others, right? So they had to make mistakes because the JavaScript, the technology wasn't there. They weren't able to do what Playwright could do because we came along later when I don't know, it's just the perfect time to like build something like this. So yeah, we've been lucky as well, but also we learned from the others who did a great job, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Chow.
All right, so I love Playwright. I'm a Playwright shill. I don't care what people say, but I love Playwright because it makes my life so much easier. I'm at a point where I appreciate a tool with a small subset of sand default, which is Playwright provides, in my opinion. Like I can just write test, and I just write test in a procedural way where I can understand the test, right? There's no abstraction. I can make the abstraction that I want. And I love the fixture as an abstraction layer. But yeah, I can just look at the test. Hey, go to here, do this. And everything is async await based. So there's really don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Because we used the previous tool before Playwright and it was painful. to say the least. Especially, especially where we kind of like the front end development scene is kind of like moving toward more server side rendered. So it's no longer just the client side where I think the other tools kind of like build towards.
Yeah, which means that you don't have to do like waiting or think about how long is it going to take for this to load?
Exactly.
How long is it going to take for this component to be ready to be clicked? Playwright will just auto wait and retry. And that's just built in. And I think that's one of its, we don't even talk about it because that's just like how it works, right? But people, some people don't know that and are coming from the other, you know, kind of frameworks or whatever, where they're like adding timeouts because they think that's what you have to do. And it's like, no.
Oh gosh, we had this one test suite that would take in CI, it would take like over an hour to run because there were so many set timeouts in it. Because over the years, people were like, "Oh, it's buggy. I'll just put
a timeout. Let's not fix the JavaScript."
I'm like, y'all, you know, like every time this runs, it has to like you're telling it the minimum amount of time it has to take, and the minimum is now an hour, and it was so frustrating. And so yeah, we actually have been moving toward like. We use Playwright now. We still maintain other code, other test suites, but I think another thing that stood out to me is how it's easier to get a good selector. It was really easy to pick really terrible selectors before that were brittle and, you know, unpredictable. And, you know, for Angular developers, like a lot of selectors that used Angular things to select, which is not a good idea. So yeah, that has stood out to us.
I think as well that goes back to like before we didn't change the web that much. We built a website and that was it, right? Front end stayed the same. And now we're constantly evolving and changing. So the app is getting updated, which means the HTML is getting updated, the CSS is getting updated. And if you build your test relying on the HTML and the CSS, then that means every time you change your website, you got to change your test. So now it's just like a mess. But really, you should only test what user sees and does, what they're visible. So like like you said, Playwright has a better way of choosing locators because we prioritize role-based locators. Now, obviously, you could put test ideas on everything, and that's another great solution for a lot of companies because you know they're dealing with so much dynamic data and things like that. But if you can test closer to the user and do like get by role, get by label, get by placeholder, because the placeholder shouldn't change, that HTML shouldn't change, but where it's placed on the page might, and that's okay because you're redesigning all the time.
Yeah, it might not be the second button on the page anymore. And, you know, like when, you know, if you're getting by text, if your text changed, yeah, your test is going to break, but they should because you want to be testing that feature. But it's very frustrating if somebody comes in, writes a new feature, adds a new button to the page, and you were counting on the second button on the page being the one that you need to click. And now you got to go figure out what broke. And it's code you don't own, and you might need to get an approval from a code owner on the other side of the world. And yeah, it starts to, the sort of churn of that starts to add up quickly. Okay, so I think we last spoke to you in 2023. We did math before we started recording.
Time flies.
Time flies. I looked at a calendar. No, but we had you on in 2023. And at that point, Playwright was very new in the scene. It was sort of just like people were really excited about it. I know like our team was like, do we use it? It seems like a lot of work to change over. In those 2 years, what have you heard from the community as far as the experience switching between other test runners and Playwright?
Wow, in 2 years, a lot has happened in 2 years. The community has like grown so much, it's insane. And just to see like the amount, like our Discord channel is over 16,000 members and they're so active, like I don't even have to go in and help people answer questions because they're all just helping each other. And that's like amazing. So yeah, there's been so many people and so many stories. I think when people change over from a different way of testing, it's all about, and I mentioned before, it's just easy, and people are like, this is fun. Testing has become fun again because, and I think also because it's easy to learn, but because the tests work. right? And like we said about the locators being easier and the timeouts not having to be set, we're having less flakiness. We don't have to clean up. Tests are isolated between each one, so there's no cleanup needed. So when people are writing their tests, they're working, so they're happier, and they're like, oh my God, this just does what it's meant to do, which, why didn't it do that before? And I think that's been the big win for people, less flakiness.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I also, I remember trying to set up testing, 4 or 5 years ago, and it was always like, okay, I got to get to a blog article. I got to make sure I'm on, like, do my versions match up? Like, why is their configuration not working in my application? Like, what's different here? You play that game and it's hard to get things set up. But when I added Playwright to an application, it just worked. Like it worked. It was really easy to get it going. And that impressed me because there wasn't that, I get that anxiety of like, oh, I got to configure this new thing in my app. And I'm like, how
debug.
Right. Like, how long is this going to take me? It could take me 10 minutes. It could take me 3 days. Like, I don't know how long this is going to take. And Playwright was definitely on the a few minutes side of that. I know there's also like Chow, there's support with NX to get Playwright up and running. If you new up an Angular app in NX, you get the option of which test runner you want to use. It's really easy to set up. So yeah, and do you see a lot of people, or have you noticed people in the community, are people trying to maintain like sort of a hybrid situation? Are people trying to switch over tests all at once? What has that experience been like for people?
Yeah, there's all the experiences that are out there, right? As in, like, some people have to maintain because they just don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. And some people need to change all their tests because they're just taking so long in CI that it's like, right, we need to move, we need to change. Migrating testing is a challenging. We don't have like an easy solution. There's no like magic trick that you just like ding, because things are different depending on where you're coming from. They could be completely different, and it's like you almost kind of have to start again, right? Which is like painstaking, and you're like, oh my God, do I even do this? And like you could use our tools, CodeGen, and go and actually use the site as a user and build it all again. A lot of people are using AI to help them to and again, AI is not going to do the job for you perfect. So you have a lot of work still to do on that. But having some Playwright tests in there and having some other tests in there and then saying, can you convert this? You might get ahead of the game a little bit. And then it's just a matter of like tweaking and, improving those. But there's definitely no easy solution. And I think when people do.
Yeah, there's no reason you can't run like two solutions at the same, like in the CI, like obviously, like maybe at the same time, I guess. There's nothing that prevents Playwright from running if something else is there as well. So
exactly, you could have so many this part of your site tested by something else, and this part tested by Playwright. Like, a lot of people mix component testing. They're not using the Playwright component testing. They're using something else, and that's totally fine. And there's so many different ways, right? But yeah, there's if we could just wave the magic wand and say, everyone change to Playwright, I think everyone would just pick up that wand and go da-da, and it'd be all like happy days, everybody. But it does require a little bit of work.
Well, and I think I know there are people out there with test suites that they're efficient, they work fine, they're not flaky, like they've got them
and if they do, you don't need to change, and
exactly,
there's no problem.
Yeah, and like maybe for a future app, maybe you want to look to something like Playwright, but there is definitely value in not always chasing what's new. But I also appreciate when a tool comes along where you can say, like, this is a very painful process for us. How can you make it better? And Playwright seems to sort of fit that bill. So you talked a little bit about AI. Is Playwright doing anything specifically with AI, or is it more that people are using AI tools to help them write Playwright?
That also. So yeah, I mean, obviously, nobody wants to work anymore, right? Everyone wants AI to do everything. That is the world. I don't think people want to work before either. Yeah, but everyone wants to get AI to do stuff, and we're living in a moment I personally believe we're living in a moment that's very exciting in the developer world, because we
Mhm.
get to do so more and be more productive, and we don't have to worry about like those tiny little things. And even just testing, some people do not like writing tests, and I get you, I understand you. Not many people do like writing tests. So to get something like AI to write tests for you is very beneficial, because there are people out there who are not good at testing, who do not want to write tests, but they really should have their application tested. And AI can help them at least, get started and get ahead of the game. If you're an expert in testing, you might be better and quicker than AI, because AI is not up to the scratch that it should be and will be at in the future. I'm sure in the future AI is going to be much better, but right now, it never guarantees you 100% everything
Yeah.
perfect, right? Perfection
No.
doesn't exist in AI.
No, it doesn't. I feel like there's still a lot of guidance necessary. And, I know there's a lot of anxiety in the community around AI, because you get posts on Blue Sky that are like, it's coming for your job is gone. You like kiss your retirement goodbye. You'll never have, like, you're gonna go be flipping burgers in 10 years. Like, and that's scary for people. I mean, like, I don't think they can get AI to flip the burgers, but maybe they can. Like,
Maybe they can.
maybe they can, and we just don't know what the limits are yet. But what I've noticed is exactly what you're saying, is that like it gets you a good start. I've had to put in a lot of guardrails in our applications to make sure that it writes the unit test the way we want, because a lot of the examples that exist that trained the models that are being used to use generative AI were trained on very tightly coupled unit tests and component tests, where it's doing things like clicking the third button or invoking the very specific component method. And then, they write these tests where you're like, this is going to be a nightmare to maintain this, because it's always going to, like, it's brittle. And so I've had to put in a lot of like, please use this file as an example of how I want you to write this test. And it does get pretty close, but you still have to go through and do cleanup. But what I do like about using AI for testing is that it does sort of, I don't love setting up tests. I actually do love writing them, because it's like one opportunity where something literally gives you a grade, right? So like you run your test suite and you're like, you got 100% coverage. That is an A+, everybody. So
how's that type A going, Lara?
Yeah.
sometimes I just need somebody to approve, like, tell me I'm doing a good job.
I'm on the I guess the opposite side of Laura here. I guess probably because I like to work with like dev tools and like provide DX and stuff like that. I love setting up fixtures for my coworkers to use. Things like, hey, how to interact with our mock database, how to interact with this authentication stuff, right? You
Sure.
can just do like you provide like a fixture to just do login, or you can use just a login via form, or you can just do a login via like a third party service and stuff like that. And everything is just very, very nice. And the way that Playwright fixture API is designed, I love it, because you can just, hey, this runs. And after this runs, there's some cleanup to do, and you can do all that. So we completely changed the way that we provide mock data for our application, and the flakiness is just go from 100 to like 10%, because there's
Nice.
still some stuff going on. But yeah, I love it.
I do agree with you. I do love the whole fixture thing, like the sort of standardizing processes, because there are definitely, if you put 10 developers on the same task, you're going to get 10 different solutions and
Yeah.
of varying efficiency. So it is nice to be able to standardize those.
And that's kind of like as well what AI does, right? It's like 10 different developers, and it's going to write different tests depending on which model you chose, who chose, whatever. But have you started using the Playwright MCP at all?
No.
I want to ask you about that. Because so all I heard about is Playwright MCP, right? Uses with like some Claude desktop app to pull up an application to do something like a human would do with like a website. But I never actually found, or not found, but I never explore use cases for actual development on like testings.
Okay.
So I would love to learn about that today.
Okay, so what I'm going to tell you is basically just me playing around with things, and I'm not saying that this is the way you should write tests and drop everything else and this is it. This is just exploration. And at the moment, Playwright MCP is like 3 months old, maybe 4 months old. So it's still all very new and we're still learning. But it's in my opinion, it is a better way of writing tests because it gets things closer to the truth. So what the Playwright MCP does is once you've set up your MCP server, you can then you really have to work on the prompt file, right? It's very important to prompt and to guide it towards the right direction. But basically what you can do is ask it to navigate to a website. It opens the website and you can actually say to it, give me some ideas of what to test on this website. And then it will actually go along and start looking at your website. It takes a snapshot, an area snapshot of your page. So it can see what's on the actual website and it can see it has a search feature. It sees it has a theme toggler. It sees it has a login. So it will say, for example, oh, I see you've got a search feature. That's a great thing to test. And it will then start searching for whatever it is. So I have an example on a movie app. It will type in a movie. It will then say, okay, I typed in the movie. Now I see there's a filter by popularity. It will start filtering that by the popularity. It will do all these actions. But then it will have in its memory and in its context everything it's done. And from the page snapshot, it's got these refs. So it's able to then go back to them and say, oh, I know that this is a get by role placeholder search. And so it writes the test much more closer to the actual user because it's like it's real rather than inventing, rather than, you know, looking at test files and making sure that previous test file or the source code was good. Maybe you don't even have access to the source code. You don't need it because it's actually clicking, doing like a user would, and then it's from its memory, writing down and creating that test based on what it just did. It's very fascinating. It's very explorative, and a lot of people are using it and doing great with it. Some aren't. That depends on your website. It depends on what you're doing. I think it's great because it does actually do some really good things. If you're using test IDs, though, it doesn't have access to the test IDs. So that's something that, you know, we could definitely work on and improve. And for assertions, I think it does a better job with assertions, but if you guide it to the right way. Otherwise, it might just do like to be visible all the time because that makes sense to it. Maybe that's enough for you. Maybe that's all you want. And if not, you kind of have to say like, you know, use this instead of make sure you add to have count if there's some, you know, and guide it along those ways. But it's very powerful. And I think we're in such early stages that I just... I can see it not being the perfect solution right now, but I can definitely see it being an amazing solution closer in the future to improve just people's testing. Like sometimes you go to a website, like, what do I test? You don't know what to test. Get AI to, you know, it's like me saying to you, Chow, can you test my website? Right? You would click the button that I would never have clicked and you will find the bug, right? And so getting AI to do that for you is helping you out.
Every time.
Yep. I use Playwright MCP in my daily life. I have like a live real life thing project where I search for the insurance and stuff like that. I'm in the process of like moving to a different state as well. So I have Playwright MCP just go through all of these websites and things that like normal web search tool by these AI LLMs that cannot do. Playwright MCP can do it. For example, I'm interested in what direction the house is pointing.
Yes.
LLMs cannot do that, but then like Playwright can actually pull up and see the snapshot of the satellite view.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love this. You're automating your home search. Like this is brilliant, Chow.
I was fascinated.
It's very cool.
Yeah, because you're moving states, and so it's not like you can just go drive by the house.
Exactly, and I can ask all kinds of questions. You can't believe it. You have to try it out. If you look for things, right? Because so we're like, okay, we are interested in these zip codes. We are interested in going to these locations. We know ahead of time, like, oh, there's Asian grocery market down this way. How long does it take? What time? And it just figured it out. I'm like, what? And like the Playwright MCP really helps me because it's just like simulate an actual human going through these websites.
Wow, that is fascinating.
You have to write a
Yes.
blog post on that, Chow.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's amazing. I love realtors everywhere are just like
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, it could do a lot of cool things for improving just finding the right house, right?
yeah.
I actually bought a table for my children on it because I wanted to find the cheapest price, but I also, when like some websites don't tell you how much it costs the shipping until like you fill out all the details, and that's like
They're
so
like,
time
guys,
consuming.
it's 3 times more than the table.
Exactly. So I got the Playwright MCP to do it, and then it filled in, okay, obviously mock data just to get to, obviously it knows where I put in where I was going, where I live ish. And then it was able to say, right, it's going to cost you 30 euros to ship to there. So now I knew the price is this plus this. But it also found a deal that if you bought 2 chairs with the table, it was actually cheaper. Whereas I might have found that, I might not have found that, but I wanted to search, and it's like it just did it for me. And
I don't
that's the kind of beauty.
So yeah.
It definitely makes my life a lot easier, especially with the baby. We just bought a stroller with AI
Nice.
recommendation.
Nice.
Honestly,
It's just
getting to
quicker.
read through the reviews, because it's like it's hard to parse through reviews on things to know. Like we need to get a carpet cleaner. Like we have carpet now, and I would like to clean it because it's probably gross. But I don't know which machine is going to hold up, and I really don't want to buy one every 6 months. And so, but you start reading reviews and you're like, okay, I guess I could read all 25 of these, but it would be nice to just have AI be like, okay, I went to all 25 and
Just
they're
tell
all
me.
saying, yeah,
Just
they're
tell
all,
me the one.
yeah. Like also, is Bissell doing this review? Because maybe that's not gonna give me a balanced, fair review, Yeah, that's awesome. I did want to come back, Debbie, to one thing that you said that I really think is important, whether you're using the Playwright MCP or not, is that your integration and your end-to-end tests really should not know your code implementation. And if it does know your code implementation, that is how you've set your code. That's how you've set those tests up to be brittle.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very important point to call out. Okay, so talk a little bit about AI. The MCP and the MCP server is that in developer preview? Is it ready to go? Are people? I mean, obviously Chow's using it. Can anyone use it at this point?
I mean, everyone's already using it. We were like the #1 MCP server for ages, and like it just took off at just like
We were
crazy.
doing MCP server before anyone else was doing it, which is
not before, but it just like because we're browser automation, and it just is not just testing. That's the thing. Like Chow said, it's if it was just testing, we'd be in a smaller market, right?
Yeah.
But because it can be used for so many other things, it's like, wow, we can do all this other stuff that you didn't think you could do
build your own
before.
robot thing, right? Like this is the dream. Like maybe I should see if it can go to my.
It can't clean your carpet.
Dang it. You know what I would love it to do though is like help me write my stupid Jira tickets. But anyway, I bet it could.
It definitely could.
Yeah,
like it definitely could.
Yeah.
And then because it's a browser, like you can actually like take over. So when I would like do the table, I was in that browser state of like payment. I could then just go in, edit the address, click on the PayPal button, and continue the process. Right. And that's the kind of cool thing that you can like interact with it because it is just a browser. But yeah, like AI is it's definitely something that I think everyone should be investing some time in to just experiment and learn what is out there and what it can do, because it can, in my opinion, help you a lot in your journey, whether that be testing or whether that be whatever else you're doing. But we also have some AI features in debugging, which is also another painful thing that developers have to do, is debug tests, especially when they're not your tests. And it's like all of a sudden you've taken over this test suite and like it's failing. You're like, oh my God. So we have a couple of options for you. Again, it's AI. It's not perfect, but it's very, very good, and it's a great starting point. So there's Fix with AI. That's right in VS Code. So if you run your test and it runs into an error, there's a little kind of starry kind of magic icon. And if you click that, it will read the context that we have put in there that AI reads. It's just for AI. And it's basically giving you the page snapshot and a couple of other things so that it can make a good and better judgment of how to fix it, rather than just asking, say, Copilot without this feature. it wouldn't have as much context. So this is in VS Code. It's in a couple of places where you can click that button. And then we also have something very similar, which is in the UI mode or in Trace Viewer or in the HTML report. So if your tests fail on CI, you can open up the HTML report, your Trace Viewer, and you can click the copy prompt button in the error message of your test or in the HTML report in the error message. If you click on copy prompt, you copy a prompt over to whatever LLM you're using, be it VS Code and Copilot, be it whatever, Cloud Desktop, whatever you want. Paste it in there, and this prompt has your test source code. It has a page snapshot. It might, if you've set up your config, it has a git diff, so it knows what's changed recently in your git diff. And then you paste that in, and it will then make a good judgment of like why this failed, what happened. And the majority of time, it does a really, really good job. Now, there might be something that's really difficult to debug, and then it might kind of have to go, oh my God, I don't know what's going on here, and might suggest some things that aren't perfect. But in general, for me, it's saved up so much time because it's like, oh, this doesn't work. Click a button, fix with AI, fix, done. Review everything, okay? Always check, because sometimes it might just make the test pass without actually having done a good job. So always human in the loop, always. But definitely do try out the fix with AI and copy prompt buttons because I do find them very useful, and I hope you do too.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I think one thing that you said too that I wanted to come back to was basically like we should probably everyone needs to be embracing AI at this point. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people because there are a lot of people that I don't want to give up certain parts of my job because I like those parts of my job. But at the same time, if I don't understand AI, if I don't understand its limitations, so like as a leader on my team, I need to know what the Playwright MCP is good at doing, what it's not good at doing. I need to know what Fix with AI is good at doing, what it's not good at doing, because whether or not you're using it in your daily practice, there is going to be an intern or a junior or a mid-level developer on your team that is using it, and they're going to be using it heavily. And if you don't know what patterns to sort of look for, it's like if anyone's using it, you're is basically how.
And I say the same things as you say, but I also want to say it a little bit different, because sometimes people think everyone's just telling me I should use AI because the junior developer is going to come and take my job. I actually think that we as humans live in fear of change. And I even remember the iPhone when it came out and FaceTime came out. And the thoughts that somebody would call me and see me, a video of me in that moment, was the scariest thing ever. I was like, oh my God, I'm not even answering that call. They're going to see me. I could be in pajamas. I'm not ready. I hadn't done my hair. Right? Now I'm FaceTiming all the time. It's like my kids know FaceTime like it's the first thing that they ever see, because that's the only thing the phone does, in their opinion, because they don't watch TV or anything like that. But FaceTime is like, we just embraced it. But a lot of people fought it at the time. A lot of people weren't ready for the change. And that's where we're going with AI. And I think just in general in life, we fear something that we don't know. We fear something that is moving faster than we can even imagine and keep up with. So that's something that's very, very hard to deal with. And us being in the jobs we are in, sometimes we're much more ahead of everything than the normal person in the normal life. So I would say try it out, because it's something that is going to help you. And if you think it's not, right, just like when I said everyone, you should use static sites, and people fought me on that, and I said about Tailwind, and people fought me on that, and people always fight change. I've lived this for so long. Try it out. And if you think that AI is not going to help you, well, make sure you have a good reason to actually say, you know what, I've used AI and I've written tests with it, I've written code with it, but it's always done a terrible job, and I'm faster and better than it. Perfect. But you've spent 20 hours doing whatever. All right. But don't be the person that says, oh no, I'm afraid to use AI. I'm not going to use AI. I don't like AI, when you haven't used it. It's like someone saying they don't like Tailwind CSS and have never used it.
Yeah, or they don't like chocolate because they've never tried it. You're like,
yeah, or even Angular and Vue, right? And they say, oh, I don't like Angular, I don't like Vue, but I've never used one of them, right? It's like, well, no, use them and then make up a decision. So yeah, I definitely, but it will help you. It really will. I promise you.
Yeah, and I guess I would what I was saying too is not as much as the junior developer is going to come for your job, but it's more like the junior developer is going to mess up your code. So, but you know, I think
But
I
you got
think there
tests, so you'll be all right.
I think too, like in the tech community, we've had the fire drill before where everyone's like, everyone's doing blockchain and we're all going to do it forever and it's the best thing in the world, and then we're all like, okay, but like it's very specific and not everybody is.
I never
doing that.
believed in that though. I actually never,
Yeah.
I never went down that route, and I
No,
really
I
didn't
didn't
think.
either. And I
Yeah,
think
like
there are people that are like, they're still like, they've been hurt before. Like we've all been hurt before with the new thing that's coming. But I feel like AI is, it's different. And it is sort of one of those moments where you're either kind of on the train or the train is leaving you behind and maybe you're gonna not be
I
on the
don't
train.
think you will actually be left behind at all. AI is gonna scoop you up. It's gonna get you on that train. You might
You
just
get
be in
on
the
the
lost
next train.
carriage, but
Okay.
you're gonna be on that train because it's in everything now. And it, you know,
It is.
the more and more companies are building agents as part of their workflows, we're going to be booking flights using AI agents, and the developers that work for those companies are going to be building, and it's going to be very exciting. And it's like, think about the cool things that you can do as developers and even bring into the company that you can think about. How can I use AI in the company we and how can we improve our client journeys? And if you as a developer can think about that and embrace AI and make this happen, we could just have so much easier worlds, I think.
Yeah, sure. And I do agree. I mean, I was hesitant for a long time, and I've actually, you know, I found some stuff that's good at that I like to use it for, where it's genuinely made my daily existence at work an easier situation. And now I'm going to try the Playwright MCP because we have a whole bunch of like tests we need to write, and it'd be really super great to get them done fast. So
even just get it started, even if you have to refactor something, but to get started, like bang.
Yeah, exactly. I could totally see to a use case where you're like, hey, here's a bug that I got. Can you help me write a test that will make sure this bug doesn't happen anymore?
Exactly. Test some edge cases out. It found some edge cases in my search feature that I never even thought about. I was like, oh my God. And actually I need to fix the search feature now because I found something that doesn't actually work.
Nice.
So
it's not nice
something
that didn't work. But
yeah, but it is cool. It is cool. It brings a lot of value, and you just have to find the value.
Yeah, absolutely. So one other question I had for you, I know that Playwright, this is changing gears. I know that Playwright had a component story or component testing story at some point. Where does that sit today with Playwright?
You know what? It's kind of sitting. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of development in the AI world. So we've been kind of like forces have been pushed towards, you know, that. And then just maintaining Playwright in general. So there hasn't been enough people on the team to be able to dedicate to component testing. So I don't really know where its future is going, and I really don't want to make false promises, and I don't want to say anything that I shouldn't say. So I would say just follow the GitHub issue that's out there where everyone has been kind of, you know, commenting on, and the team one day will make a decision to either, you know, put priority into it or deprioritize it completely. I have no idea because we're a team of very small team. So it's everyone wants everything, and it's so difficult to get everything done. And I think if you're going to do it, you need to do it properly, and you need to really like dedicate and make sure it works on every single framework, not just Angular, like on everything. And that's hard because frameworks keep changing, things keep happening. So yeah, it's not an easy thing.
Do you feel like though there would be a future? So I know that like when component testing sort of that was, you know, a few years ago, people were talking about it a lot because tests like integration and end-to-end test suites were expensive to run in CI. They are harder to maintain. Do you feel like Playwright maybe negates the need for that layer of testing, or do you still see value in it?
I personally think it depends on your application. But also I don't even write unit tests anymore. Because I'm not writing the specific component that really needs that kind of testing. And maybe you
Sure.
are, maybe it's a shopping cart type of component that like really needs to be heavily tested, and that makes sense. But in general, I just find that end-to-end tests are, I call everything end-to-end tests, even though you might call it integration tests. I just put all in the same bucket.
It just depends on the person who's like, no, it's not that.
Yeah, exactly. But I think they bring more value than unit tests, again, depending on the application, depending on what you're doing. And I would always end-to-end test first, and maybe you're developing a component and you need that specifically. But if you're developing a component library, it makes sense that you write unit tests,
Sure.
because that component is going to be used in different websites and for different reasons. So I've done a lot of that in the past. But yeah, if you don't have time to test everything, I would put end-to-end tests. I would use Playwright before component testing. And that's, I think, why we invest more in end-to-end testing, because it makes more sense than, you know, components at the end of the day could be very well tested, but when you put them together, what happens? That's the
Right.
real important part.
Your user doesn't really care if your unit test paths on your cart component if your cart component doesn't work with everything else. So
exactly. And I will like to say, and I think Vite is doing a great job in the space of like for component testing. And I think, you know, if you're already using that, then you don't need to change or do anything else. But definitely end-to-end test and make sure they all work together.
excellent. Excellent. All right. So you're a small team and obviously working with AI. Is there any other features that your team has been working on that you're excited about? Or is there anything about the MCP server or the other AI features that we haven't talked about yet?
I think like we're always trying to improve things and, you know, move things along in the direction that the user wants. There's a lot of, we're trying to do a lot of stuff and it's really hard, but it's like, where does AI fit into our story, and how can we improve people's lives when it comes to testing in the AI world? You know, and a lot of people in the past were using like Cucumber and wanted Cucumber integration. We don't have that. But now my question to anyone out there is, does it make sense for Cucumber? Can we do something with LLMs, maybe with the Playwright MCP, that could bring in that kind of Cucumber side of things, and you know, using natural language, start creating better tests? How can we get the MCP server to make sure it's writing better assertions?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of things that we're working on but testing out that might just go thrown in the bin and never be seen by the public because it just didn't work, because we don't know. And every possibility is out there. Is just like, we just keep coming up with new ideas. It's like, oh my God, you can now do this. Like MCP servers are like 8 months, 7 months, right? It's all so new. So yeah, we are testing and working on a lot of stuff, but nothing specifically that I can share that's like, oh my God, we're going to change your lives next month. I would say just keep a watch on the Playwright channel, because we do, you know, keep people up to date and throw things out. I keep creating videos that are telling you, you know, you can generate tests, you can get a Playwright MCP service to explore the website. You can use it just to browser automate stuff. And the more we invest time in it and kind of like play around with it, who knows what we can do next month? We don't know. You don't know. I'm listening to Chow's story going, wow, that's a really great idea. Maybe we should work more towards that. Yeah, there's so many cool things. A lot of improvements have been happening in the HTML report and Trace Viewer. CodeGen as well can now generate assertions. So there's, you know, one of my thoughts is, how can we mix the MCP and CodeGen together? Right? I think like there's a lot, and I don't even know if the team are thinking about that, but that's something like CodeGen is great.
Yeah.
MCP server is great. How can we make everything great? How can we put the trace viewer in there so it can open up the trace viewer and debug itself properly? Like I don't know what we're doing. We're playing around with things, but who knows? I'm not even saying we're doing that. I'm just saying these are things that to me sound cool, but I don't even know if they actually have a good story or not.
Yeah. I think that's part of software engineering too, is right. Like you identify the problem, like this is a problem. And then it's like, all right, how can I solve it? And there's so many different ways things can be solved. And I mean, I think there's a lot of processes in my daily life that I just accept. I'm like, whatever, this is just the annoying thing I have to do X, Y, or Z. Where Chow will come along and be like, that is annoying, I am going to automate that. You know, and so it's nice. That's what I love about the development community. Speaking specifically, because Playwright is open source and there's a huge community supporting it, what does Playwright need from the community at this point?
I would say like the community is amazing, and I really do appreciate all community members out there and all the MVPs and ambassadors who are doing tremendous stuff. So they've taken a lot of the work away from me, where I was the only one speaking at the conferences and doing stuff. So now it's like, wow, we're being represented everywhere, and blog posts written, books written, and I really want to say thank you because that's amazing. So I would say the best thing that the community can do is give us feedback. Don't be afraid to share stories and tell us, this is working great. You know, even when, especially when it comes to AI, right? A lot of people don't like it. Great. Well, tell me why you don't like it, and what didn't work and how we can improve that and make it better. Share your ideas with us. Create feature requests, file bugs. That really helps us as well. But definitely, like, how can we improve because we're imagining what you need to do, but sometimes we don't actually know what you're doing. So maybe tell us, like, this is what I'm trying to do. And this is the feature I need to do it, and around AI or around not AI, whatever. Because we learn from those stories. So yeah, feature requests, bug reports, and just reach out to me and say, hey, we're trying to do this. I'm trying to do this. And I don't know, I bring all that back to the team and say, hey, I had this great conversation with this person, and they're trying to, I don't know, run all these tests using blah, 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 and doing blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, we need all those stories, because otherwise we just focus in one area, right? And we need to broaden that out.
Yeah, definitely. And so you mentioned that there's a Discord server for Playwright. Are there other ways that people can communicate with you or the team?
GitHub is our main source if you want to like speak with engineers and, you know, get your feature ideas and things like that out there. GitHub is the best place because everything's out in the open, and it makes it, you know, people can upvote it, and then we kind of understand, is this something a lot of people want or just a small amount of people want? So it's really important.
One team that really,
yeah, is it
really
the one
wants
team? Or is it like 150,000 people? I was like, oh my God, we need to do this. And then LinkedIn, we're also quite active on LinkedIn and on YouTube as well. We have a very good YouTube channel where we post videos quite frequently. I'd say, and I mean, we're still hanging out there on X, you know, we're not great, but we're kind of there because, you know, it's not great. But definitely LinkedIn, YouTube, and Discord and GitHub.
Very good. Was there
We're also on
anything-
Blue Sky, but we're not really fully there either. But do follow us on Blue Sky. Oh, and Dev too as well. Sorry, for our blog post.
Yeah, I do love Blue Sky for the community. But I think once I cut X out of my life, it's been hard to kind of go back into that lifestyle of being on
Tweeting.
social media. It turns out my life is better without social media. Like when I deleted
It always
Facebook
is.
on my phone, it was like the best thing that ever. There's been so much.
It's called life.
I know. Like I just got, my cousin pinged me last night. I was like, "Have you been involved in this drama?" And I'm like, "I didn't know it was happening." And up until
I know
this
it's like the
moment.
news. I don't watch the news. I like then my husband's like, "Did you not know in America that?" I'm like, "I have no idea." And you know what? I don't care because I'm living my life, and my life is pretty cool and exciting. Sorry,
Yeah.
everyone else.
Yeah, no, it's that's a whole other episode that we could go into. What's happening in the United States?
And
Anyway,
having kids is a great way to get you off social media as well. You just don't have the time to share anything with anyone or read anything or care about anyone else because your time is just focused in one area. But yeah.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I am very excited to go test out the MCP server. Honestly, it worked because I got some tests to write. So let's see how this. We're going to throw some.
Let us know how it goes
and see what happens. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm excited, Chow. Like, I love your house searching story. That's fantastic. I'm like, like. I'm imagining all sorts of things. So yeah, that my little developer brain is like, will I do
what can I
anything? No.
build?
I'm
just
an idea.
vibe code it all. Just sit there and vibe it out.
But Debbie, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate very much you taking your time. To your team, I want you to please give them our heartfelt appreciation for all the hard work they have put into Playwright, for the features they've given us. It is a great solution. It has been really a change in the way a lot of teams are handling that layer of testing. So we really do appreciate all the effort that you and the team have put into that. And to our listener, if you would like to subscribe to the podcast, you can get more content like this every week delivered to your phone. ng-conf will be October 17th and 18th in Baltimore, Maryland. If you have not bought your tickets yet, it is time to do that. So get your tickets, get your travel arranged. We'd love to see you there. And we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.